everyone, and welcome to another lesson. In the previous lesson, we started talking about JavaScript array methods and properties, and we talked about the array length method, we talked about the array to string method, and also we were able to see things to take note of, especially when it comes to the array to string method as it's used internally in JavaScript are needed when an object needs to be, displayed as text or as string. And we're able to see how the length method can also be used to set the size of an array explicitly by passing in the length size, and how you can use it to get the size of your array. So this this were what we discussed about in the previous lesson. And in this lesson, we will continue to talk about another method that is available when it comes to working with arrays in JavaScript. And that method is called the JavaScript array at method. Now, you can use the JavaScript array at method to get the third element of the below array using the at method. And we are going to quickly see this in our, code editor. And the reason why the at method was introduced, the purpose itself is going to be made clear when we come back to this slide. Thank you. So let's quickly take a look at this example in our code editor. So here we are working with the JavaScript array at method. At method was introduced. I want to shorten this. I want to take out this last part actually. So the at method was introduced in JavaScript to access array elements using a relative index. So let's take a look at that example that was shown earlier. So look at what I have here. I already have an array that contains 5 elements. So the array name is fruit. Dot. I can just pass in the method. Say I want something at the position of 4. Let me just assign this to variable. And now you can see that the index position for this element at the index position 4 is pineapple. Don't forget that in the previous lesson I talked about how length property and the index property of an array works. You can see that when we are working with index, counting starts from 0. But when you want to get the length of your array, and you will realize that in the last lesson, what we got was different from the index answer in our array. And that is because indexes that array uses start from 1, while the length will just calculate the number of the elements in your array and give you the output. And now look at this. What I just used is that give me the elements at the index position of 4. So what JavaScript will do is JavaScript will start from the beginning of my array and count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what do I have at the position of 4? That's pineapple. And that's why you are seeing pineapple here. Now imagine if we passed in an element position that does not exist, like 6. Let's see what will happen. We are getting undefined because this position does not exist in our code, and that is why we are getting an undefined output. Now, another thing is that you can use the bracket notation to return an index element from an array. So there's another method using the bracket notation that works the same way with the way we use this at at this bracket to access our element. And let's take a look at how that works. So now I already have my array there on my screen. So I can do this. Let result equals to fruits, and I will pass in the bracket notation and put the value that I want inside it. Now you can see that the bracket notation and the what is it called, the art method, they do the same thing. Here in that I am getting pineapple using the bracket notation as well, which is the same thing that I got when I use the art method. So you can as well also use the traditional indexing by using the bracket notation, as long as it's an array, to give you the output that you want. Now let's take a look at why the art method was introduced in JavaScript. Now, many languages allow negative bracket indexing like -1. So some languages support negative bracket indexing like this. So you can do something like maybe -1. Now you can see that in JavaScript, it's showing undefined, but some languages support it. They accept negative indexing like -1 to access elements from the end of an object. So the negative indexing is to access the end, to access elements from the end of an object. So the way we have banana, apple, and so on and so forth, we have pineapple. So the -1 will be used to access the last element in that array, which is the pineapple that we have. So many languages support the use of that negative bracket indexing. But in JavaScript, it is not possible because bracket notation is used for accessing both array and objects. So you can see now that the bracket notation that I just displayed now is used for accessing both arrays and objects, which means it is not possible to use a negative bracket indexing in JavaScript. Object -1 refers to the value of key -1, not to the last property of the object. So this is the reason why it cannot be used in JavaScript. So the art method was introduced in ES 2022 to solve this problem. So the art method helps us to access property using the relative index as against the negative index that many other languages support but that JavaScript do not support. So this is why the art method was introduced. So I hope you've been able to get a clear understanding of how this art method works in JavaScript. So I'll bring it back so that you can see what we did earlier. So this, you put the value, you pass the value inside this what do I call it, bracket, and so you definitely get your output. So I hope you've been able to follow along how the art method works in JavaScript, and what we did here to access the relative index can be done using the traditional way as well, using the bracket notation by passing the index value that we want. So thank you, and this is the end of this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.